You think you're choosing her. You think you're deciding to fall in love. But what if I told you that every time you fall for the wrong woman, it's not because of who she is, but because of who she represents? Carl Jung didn't just explore the mind. He unearthed its shadows. And in those shadows, he found something terrifying. The anima, the unconscious image of the feminine lodged deep inside every man's psyche. She is ancient. She is seductive. And she is dangerous. She doesn't care about your happiness. She doesn't care about your future. Her purpose is transformation through fire. And the woman you keep choosing, the one who breaks you, humiliates you, betrays you, is her disguise. This isn't a romantic mistake. It's a psychic initiation. You're not falling in love. You're being pulled into an archetypal war. Jung warned that the anima is not just an internal image. It projects itself onto real women. And when you mistake that projection for reality, you hand over your power to a phantom. That's why she seems perfect at first. That's why she lights your soul on fire before extinguishing your sense of self. You're not seeing her. You're seeing a mirror of your own unconscious, dressed in lipstick and secrets. So here's the promise of this video. By the end of this journey, you will understand precisely why you are magnetically drawn to women who hurt you, and how to break the spell. You will learn to spot the hidden anima test behind her eyes, to respond not like a boy hoping for love, but like a man confronting his shadow. Jung didn't want you to avoid the anima. He wanted you to integrate her, to seduce the seductress, to alchemize her chaos into power. And today, we begin that transformation. Scenario 1. You meet a woman who embodies everything you think you want: beauty, mystery, sensuality. You feel like you've known her forever. She tells you she's never met someone like you. The connection is instant, almost mythic. But then, she disappears for 3 days after your most intimate conversation. No explanation, no message. When she finally replies, she acts like nothing happened. There's a test embedded in this silence. Not logistical, psychological. This is not about her being busy. It's about her pulling away to observe your reaction. Why? Because the anima doesn't trust men who panic. Her purpose is not to comfort, but to initiate. Evolutionarily, this behavior activates your ancient protector instincts, testing if you are anchored in your core or easily thrown into emotional chaos. The real test is this: do you collapse when she withdraws? Do you chase, explain, accuse? Or do you hold the tension? The weak response is immediate. He sends a long message. Hey, is everything okay? I just felt like we had a really great conversation, and now I haven't heard from you. Just want to know where I stand. He believes he's being mature, communicative. But to her, especially the anime-infused woman, this is a revelation of his inner chaos. He's not grounded. He needs reassurance. He needs her attention to feel stable. His message is a confession of imbalance. It signals low status because it reveals a man who has lost his center in her absence. Her subconscious registers. This man's emotions are ruled by mine. He is not a mountain. He is water taking the shape of my container. And attraction dies, not with a scream, but with a whisper. I thought he was different. The powerful response is silence, not as a game, but as a revelation of inner stillness. He does nothing. He doesn't react to her withdrawal, not because he doesn't care, but because he refuses to seek emotional regulation through her. In Jungian terms, he is resisting the anima's pull to project his soul onto her. He remains grounded in his own axis mundi, the psychological center of his being. When she finally messages back, he responds minimally, neutrally. Hey, all good. No accusation, no warmth either. He neither punishes nor rewards. This is what terrifies the anima. She cannot control him. His masculinity is not in pursuit of approval, but anchored in sovereignty. And that calm, detached response sends a powerful unconscious signal. I have already individuated. I do not chase phantoms. I watch them reveal themselves. In this moment, her perception shifts. First, confusion. She expected hunger. Expected emotional hunger pangs in the shape of need. What she finds instead is stillness. The kind of masculine quiet that only comes from a man who has faced his own demons and refused to kneel. Then comes the intrigue. Why didn't he ask where I was? Why didn't he try to win me back? And finally, obsession begins to ferment. She doesn't know if she's lost him, or if she ever really had him. He becomes a puzzle. And for the anima, the puzzle is the portal. She begins to feel what he once felt, a magnetic pull she cannot control. The dynamic flips. And without ever raising his voice, he becomes the center of her psychological gravity. Scenario 2. You're in a relationship with a woman who constantly compares you to other men. Jake from work is hilarious. You should see how Melissa's husband surprised her with flowers last week. These comparisons aren't just idle chatter. They are strategic provocations. Jung would call this the animus tactic of psychic differentiation, forcing you to confront the gap between who you are and the archetypal masculine image she secretly worships. This is not just a test of jealousy. It's a test of your psychic cohesion. She's not asking you to become Jake. She's asking, do you abandon your sense of self in response to external validation models? The weak response is predictably insecure. He laughs nervously, tries harder, plans a romantic dinner he can't afford, starts mimicking the behaviors of the men she praises. At first, she responds with shallow gratitude, which encourages him to keep contorting. But deep down, her respect dies a quiet death. Why? Because he has shown her he can be manipulated through comparison. He lacks internal orientation. He doesn't act from a sense of sovereign values. He shapeshifts based on perceived competition. Jung called this the loss of self to persona. He has abandoned his authenticity to wear a mask that might please her. But the anima despises masks. She wants the soul, not the performance. A powerful response is counterintuitive. When she brings up Jake, he doesn't flinch. He simply responds, sounds like you admire him. Good for Jake. No sarcasm, no tension, just absolute detachment. She feels a friction she didn't anticipate. He doesn't fight for dominance in the sandbox. He refuses to play the game altogether. Then he shifts focus, not to her emotions, but to his path. Anyway, I've been thinking of cutting back on screen time. My energy's too scattered lately. This subtle redirection is a psychological masterstroke. He reclaims the frame. His response says, I don't compete for approval. I command it by staying loyal to my direction. And suddenly, she feels exposed. The game didn't work. Her comparison has bounced off a wall of unshakable masculinity. She feels it immediately, a tremor in her unconscious. The moment he didn't respond with defensiveness, with competition, with ego, something cracked open in her psyche. A primal awareness. This man cannot be baited. He doesn't chase approval because he is approval. His presence is a declaration of value, not a request for validation. And this triggers something even deeper in her respect. Not the polite kind, but the soul-level reverence that only arises when a woman senses she is in the orbit of a man who cannot be shaped by her whims. She will test him again. Of course she will. But now a seed has been planted, a seed of awe. And awe is the gateway to devotion. Scenario 3. She accuses you of not being emotionally available. You're calm, direct, masculine, but now she's telling you that she can't feel you, that you're too cold, too rational. The anima knows this is the kill switch for many modern men, especially those who are raised to overcorrect for Stoicism. Her accusation is laced with archetypal potency. She is not just expressing frustration. She is invoking the myth of the emotionally dead father, the absent king, the man who cannot truly love. Jung would tell you this moment is not about your behavior, but your spiritual identity. She is asking, "Are you human or are you hollow?" The weak response is predictable. He immediately panics and overcorrects. He starts confessing, opens up about his childhood trauma, floods her with vulnerability in an attempt to prove his depth. He thinks he's being intimate, but what he's actually doing is outsourcing his emotional center to her approval. He's asking her to validate his pain, to name him worthy of love. And this is catastrophic to the anima's respect, because she doesn't want to feel like his mother. She doesn't want to become the emotional container for his unresolved wounds. At first, she'll listen, maybe even soothe him, but it's a trap. Not her trap is, because now he's entered her domain of emotional supremacy. He's confessed that her perception of his emotionality defines his masculinity. And with that, the balance dies. The powerful response? He pauses, breathes, and says, "I feel things deeply. I just don't perform them." Then silence. He doesn't seek to be understood. He reveals his truth and lets it echo. This is masculine soul force. His words don't justify, they declare. He is not cold, he is contained. He doesn't weep on command, he bleeds when it matters. And that difference fractures her expectations. In Jungian terms, he refuses to fuse with the anima's demand for emotional flooding. He integrates her, but refuses to be consumed by her. That's what makes him powerful. He feels, but he doesn't collapse. He's a man of sorrow who has mastered his chaos. And now, her perception fractures. The anima wants intensity, yes, but she also fears fragility. And this man has just shown her both sensitivity and stability. He can hold emotional depth without hemorrhaging his identity. She begins to question the narrative. Maybe he isn't emotionally absent. Maybe he's emotionally disciplined. Maybe, just maybe, his restraint isn't a lack of passion, but a deeper form of love. One she cannot manipulate, only witness. And in that witnessing, her desire deepens. Because now, she doesn't just want his heart. She wants access to the sanctuary where he hides it. And only those who stop demanding are ever invited inside. This shift is tectonic. It doesn't erupt in fireworks. It trembles beneath the surface. She begins to notice how his silence holds more weight than other men's speeches. How his stillness commands the room without asking for attention. She watches him now, closely, not to find flaws, but to decode him. And that decoding is the gateway to obsession. The anima, once weaponized to test him, now bends toward him. Her inner feminine submits, not in weakness, but in awe of his unwillingness to contort for love. This is the man she was trying to summon when she criticized him. Not a man who cries on cue, but a man who can hold her storm without drowning in it. She doesn't want to fix him anymore. She wants to be transformed by him. Scenario 4. You're in a deepening relationship. Things feel stable, predictable, safe. Then she begins to provoke chaos. She starts picking fights over minor things, your tone, your schedule, a misunderstood joke. It feels irrational. You tell yourself she's stressed. You try to be understanding. But this is not about logic. This is the anima's hunger for intensity. Jung wrote that the anima, when repressed or unintegrated, becomes destructive, lashing out to generate transformation. What she's doing isn't random. It's an unconscious test of your masculine polarity. She needs to know, will you fracture under pressure? Or will you absorb her fire without flinching? The weak response is to walk on eggshells. He apologizes excessively, tries to de-escalate with reason, brings her gifts to make up for what he doesn't understand. He thinks he's being a good partner, patient, kind, emotionally available. But he's missing the deeper architecture of the test. She doesn't want him to explain. She wants to feel his strength. His over-accommodation communicates the opposite. It tells her he will sacrifice truth for peace, clarity for comfort. In Jungian terms, He has become the devoured king, emasculated not by her demands, but by his own inability to hold masculine boundaries. And what begins as gratitude on her part quickly curdles into disdain. She wanted a storm chaser. She got a servant. The powerful response cuts through the chaos like a blade. When she provokes, he looks her directly in the eyes and says, "I'm not your enemy, but I also won't pretend when something doesn't make sense. If you want to connect, I'm here. If you want to fight, I'll walk away." This isn't cruelty, it's containment. A sacred boundary drawn with precision. He doesn't yell, doesn't escalate, but he refuses to be pulled into emotional turbulence he didn't create. This is anima mastery. He acknowledges the fire, but does not allow it to dictate the frame. He offers structure, not submission, and her psyche senses it immediately. He is not afraid of her rage. He will not validate chaos with cowardice. In that moment, something shatters inside her. But it is not the relationship. It is the illusion of power she thought she held over him. And in its place, a deeper current emerges. Respect, the kind that lives beneath words. She doesn't just feel seen. She feels held, not coddled, not indulged, held, as if her chaos has met a container strong enough to absorb it without distortion. This is not the fantasy love she grew up believing in. This is real polarity, and it terrifies her, because now she can't use emotional turbulence to dominate the space between them. He's too rooted, too sovereign. He doesn't flinch, and that makes him unforgettable. Now her attraction evolves. It's no longer based on surface chemistry or fantasy fulfillment. It's biological, archetypal. She begins to crave his presence in the way a flame craves oxygen, because something about his calm refusal to bend gives her feminine chaos a reason to exist. She stops picking fights, not because he changed her, but because her unconscious has recognized a new frame. A masculine presence that does not shrink in the face of fire, but transmutes it. And slowly, unconsciously, her entire nervous system begins to recalibrate around his emotional leadership. That's when obsession begins. Not over his body, but over the mystery he represents. She's not in love with a man. She's in love with a myth one she cannot control. Scenario 5. You've been seeing each other for months. There's intimacy, vulnerability, and trust. Then one night, she drops the nuclear line. "I'm not sure I'm in love with you." No warning, no clear reason. It hits like a blade, twisting every assumption you've built the connection on. Most men hear this and spiral. But Jung would urge a different interpretation. This isn't necessarily about her lack of feeling. It's the anima's final test, a full withdrawal of validation, a forced confrontation with the fear of unworthiness. Her subconscious is asking, will he abandon his identity for my approval, or will he hold his value even in rejection? The weak response is panic. He confesses his love. He tries to fix it. He begs for clarity. What did I do wrong? I thought we were good. He might even offer to change, be more affectionate, more attentive. But every syllable he speaks is soaked in desperation, and she feels it, not just as weakness, but as psychic dependence. He is now tethered to her perception of him. His identity is no longer anchored in self-possession. It floats, weightless, begging her to define it. And once again, she loses respect, because this isn't love. It's submission disguised as devotion. Jung would say he has become possessed by the anima, no longer a man, but a servant to the feminine shadow within him. The powerful response is brutal in its clarity. He listens, nods once, and says, then we should stop, not out of spite, not to punish, but because a man who values himself does not stay where love must be begged for. He doesn't argue, doesn't perform. He makes peace with her words and moves forward. This isn't Stoicism. It's spiritual armor. Jung called this individuation, the full integration of the self beyond collective approval. In that moment, he demonstrates to her the one quality she cannot forget: self-honoring detachment. He does not need her love to feel whole. He wants it, but he will never crawl for it. The shift in her psyche is instant. First, disbelief. She expected a speech, expected tears or negotiation. Instead, she is met with a man who refuses to collapse under her emotional withdrawal. And suddenly, the power flips. She's no longer the one choosing. She's been chosen. And she's being released. Not from a place of resentment, but reverence. He's not pushing her away. He's allowing her to walk without chasing. And that shakes the very foundations of her feminine psyche. Because now, the burden of certainty falls on her. And as she watches him walk, something primal awakens. A hunger, not just for his body, but for his center, his essence. His refusal to need her becomes the very reason she begins to need him. It lingers. Long after he leaves, his presence haunts her. Not because he begged, but because he didn't. Because in a world of men who barter their worth for a woman's affection, he became the exception. He didn't just pass the anima's final test, he transcended it. And now, she must reconcile with the fact that she let go of something rare. A man who could have her, but didn't need to. This is the paradox of attraction, Jung hinted at, but never directly named. When a man stops needing the woman, she begins to feel something deeper than desire-respect that turns into reverence, and reverence that turns into obsession. Let us summarize the practical arsenal, the power responses that separate the man ruled by anima possession from the man who commands her energy with masculine. Integration. When she disappears, you don't chase. You wait. You stay centered. You understand the pullback is the anima checking for your axis. And you let her come back to a man who never left himself. When she compares you to other men, you don't compete. You acknowledge. You redirect. You demonstrate through calm focus that your masculine idiosyncrasy adapt to external praise. It radiates from internal clarity. When she says you're emotionally unavailable, you don't flutter with confessions. You assert your truth. You show that your soul has depth, but it is not a circus act to be performed for validation. When she throws irrational chaos at you, you don't rationalize or appease. You contain. You cut through confusion with firm calmness. You show her the walls of your frame, and through them, she finally feels safe. And when she says she doesn't love you, you don't bargain. You don't bleed. You honor her truth and walk. Because your value is not contingent on how another person feels about you in any given moment. All of this is not about manipulation. It's about transformation. Jung never wanted you to escape the anima. He wanted you to meet her with the full power of the masculine self. He wanted you to integrate her image without collapsing into her shadow. That is the path of individuation. That is the path of attraction without addiction. Love without loss of self. Presence without possession. The woman you keep falling for isn't just wrong for you. She's the mirror of your inner fragmentation. And every time you fall for her again, it's not because you're stupid. It is because your psyche is still waiting for you to reclaim the power you project onto her. The good news is this: the moment you stop trying to fix her and instead confront what she represents, you begin to change everything. Your energy shifts. Your frame hardens. And suddenly, the women who once confused you begin to orbit you. This is the true seduction. Not of her, but of your own soul. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You want power with women? Make the darkness conscious. Make the anima conscious. And when she tests you again, which she will, look her in the eye, not to dominate, not to obey, but to stand firm in your center. And in that stillness, everything changes. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be remembered, not by your sweetness, by your unshakable self-possession. This lesson is only the beginning. If you want to go even deeper into the alchemy of masculine power, watch the next video. The 5 innocent questions women ask to test your power, Machiavelli. There, you'll all learn exactly how women frame control you using your own words against you, and how to reverse it with surgical precision. Watch it now. The anima is watching. Show her who you've become.